Hey everybody, this is Greg-Petix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the Petixonian Institute of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to continue our scholarly examination of Epic Illustrated Magazine. This is number 16, February 1983. We start off very nicely with this beautiful Barry Windsor-Smith painted cover. This is some nice stuff. Even just the little stuff in the background here. He draws like every leaf and blade of grass. Just a really nice piece. If you're a Barry Windsor-Smith fan, you're going to really like this issue. There's 3 new stories in here, or at least never before published stories. And a lot of good stuff. Got the contents page and the overview. So here we go. What a great way to start off an issue. This is the penultimate chapter of Abraxas and the Earthman. Chapter 7, Awakening. So we start off where we left off last episode. John Isaac is still in the giblet of Abraxas the whale, with all of these, the loon as they're called. They're all crazy. They live up to their name. And they think he's the fulfillment of this prophecy. He's like, what are you guys doing? You got it all wrong. I'm not the self that the Zlexu surgeons wanted you to find. The true self is a state that every one of us can awaken into. And they're too crazy to understand. They're just like, no, you're ruining our ceremony. Get in there. And they shove him in this thing. I just got to comment on this, the art for just all this, the insides of the whale. Just so amazing. It's kind of gross too. And they put him in this thing. It's like kind of like an amniotic sac. And he's going to suffocate in there. But the trauma of that makes his aura come out. Like we saw last issue, or I believe last episode, or maybe 2 episodes ago. But now the aura is fully developed. It's not a fetus anymore. And he's beyond the perimeters of normal space-time. So he's in this, cosmic realm. And he realizes he's not alone. He sees this weird little ball. And the ball is just kind of going beep. So now we cut back to those 3 giant aliens. And it's kind of interesting. We see that the male, this is the first time we can see his face. His helmet was on in all the past appearances. His name's Ridge. And he's basically where a mustache would be. He's got these tendrils. And as we've seen before, the females have these holes on their face. So we realize that that's kind of like their genitalia. I guess these tendrils are meant to fit into these holes on the women's faces. Just such a bizarre concept, but just shows how well Rick Veitch thinks through this whole crazy science fiction world. It's pretty amazing. And of course they're still badgering him to have sex, and he's just like, leave me alone. I just want to eat my meal in peace. These fucking nymphomaniacs. And then out of the blue, Sphinx pops out, and she tries to grab a morsel of food right out of his mouth, but she drops it. And he gets his laser gun and shoots at her, but he misses. She escapes. So she goes back to her companions. We got the dying Staub. He's pretty much a goner. And the head of Falco. And Falco and Sphinx are definitely deepening their relationship. Falco's basically in love with her. He's just like, oh, I'm so glad you're here. You've taken such good care of me. You're so goddamn wonderful. She's licking his face like a cat. So while they're doing that, Staub gives up the ghost. Literally. His aura comes out of his body. And he asks himself, he's like, thinks to himself, this is like what happened to the Earthman, John Isaac. How did he stay alive? And because he's in that same that area beyond time space, just the thought of it makes John Isaac appear. And John Isaac says, did the Zlexu operate on your brain too? And he's like, no, I died. And he says, oh, you're dead. But I'm not. So he's like, oh, I guess the surgery that the Zlexus did on my brain have given me the ability to enter my soul state while my body still lives. And he tells him that the aura, the self, the soul, they're all one and the same thing. Now we cut back to the alien ship. Rotwang is just, he's still nuts. He's just muttering to himself. And he's looking for food. He's aware enough to realize that he's hungry and he needs food. So he finds this morsel, whatever the hell it is, but it's food. And then all of a sudden, this whip cracks around his neck. And it's held by the hand of Neversweat, the guy who, the mutineer, the head of the mutiny. And he just starts whipping him and taunting him. He's like, we told you that going after Abraxas was crazy. Look at it. He totally destroyed you. He kicked your ass, basically. You were fucking wrong. Admit it. He beat you. And it seems like Rotwang's brain is snapped back into awareness. He seems like his old self. And he's still just like obsessed with getting this whale. He says, I swear by the blood of each man lost, I will yet take the red whale for every barrel of oil I can squeeze from his bloody carcass. So he whips him into submission, and then Neversweat goes to eat that food. And then it's a giant mouse trap. And this is so nasty, so gory. It just crushes him. His guts are spilling out. This is nasty. So Rotwang is just gloating about it. He's got the whip in his hands. And Neversweat says, help me. And Rotwang says, of course I'll help ye. And this is so gnarly. He just sticks his peg into his cheek like he's going to rip through his cheek skin. So, Rotwang's back in form, He's back to his own old self. Now we cut back to the two auras. And John thinks, or I don't know, he has this cosmic awareness now, so he realizes that this is a pain cell, and Abraxas is trapped inside of it. And he realizes that the way to free Abraxas is to sing the song of the whales. If we can focus on the song, Abraxas will do the rest. So they start singing the whale song. They instantly know how to do it. And then the pain cell joins in, 3-part harmony. And as the three mystical voices synchronize, the soul of Abraxas is freed. And the whale can speak in his true voice here. So now his whale song it's like nothing can stand up to the cacophony that sweeps along the length and breadth of his biosystem. And we see it's just obliterating the loon. It's ripping them apart, like piece by piece. I love this lettering to show it's almost like a force beam. Here too, the buoy and the E is just shattering. This is that ship, the undigestible spaceship that was in Abraxas's gut that was hurting him and cutting through his stomach lining. And then the time has come for a much needed purge. And Abraxas pukes out all of that shit that's been aggravating him. So now we're back with the aliens. And then we see in the little hidey holes are the crew of the Yorick, the remaining crew. And the head of Falco, he's laughing, and Rotwang says, what's so funny? And he says, revenge. You see, I have a plan that could not only get you back to the fleet, but also put enough firepower in your hands to take care of Abraxas. And so Rotwang threatens him with a knife. He says, out with it. And he says, you'll never get it from me. Maybe kill me. I don't care anymore. At least I'll die with the satisfaction of taking you with me. And then all of a sudden, Staub, who's dead, he starts speaking. And he says, for your own sake, Captain Hold, a man's soul can only carry the weight of so many cruel acts. Give up this mad vengeance. I've seen Abraxas in its true state of radiant purity, and your revenge is such a foul and blasphemous little thing beside it. Just give it up. So Rotwang, of course, doesn't want to hear it. He starts stabbing Staub. And Staub is all like, I'm beyond you. You can't hurt me anymore. You know, I pity you, basically. And he goes off forever now. He says, I'll see you all on the other side. So now Rotwang's desperate. He says, Falco, I'll give you a new body if your plan really works. Those Lexu surgeons will fix you right up. He says, I'd love to believe you, Rotwang, but you're not really long on principles. You'd probably renege. I can't trust you. But Sphinx says, you know, there is a way to bind a captain to his word. It's called the Eye of Truth. And Rotwang's like, hush, woman. And apparently this is a tradition, a way to bind an agreement where Rotwang has to cut out his own eye. And once again, Rotwang has taken another piece from him. First he got his leg, and now he's got his eye, basically. So now we cut back to John Isaac. Inside the whale, we realize that the only thing that survived is John Isaac's body is still there. It was protected by that sack. And then we see John and Abraxas kind of unite for the final transformation, for the main event. Now we're back with the aliens. They're getting really aggressive with this poor guy. They're pulling off his underwear. They're like, come on, it takes 3 to tango. And he's like, I gotta get my spacesuit on. I gotta do some maintenance on the ship. Leave me the hell alone. So he goes out there. He's grumbling, just like, oh man, these women are driving me crazy. And all of a sudden he feels what he thinks is heartburn at first. And then he goes, gack. And Rotwang is in his spacesuit, along with the other crew members who have survived the York. And he's stabbing him. I don't know if he's stabbing him in the neck, but it's fatal. He punctures a vein, and he's just drowned in his blood, almost drowns in his blood. So in the helmet here, we see our cast. And there's these little buttons. The navigational buttons are right here on the helmet, so his mustache tendrils could activate them. So they figure out how it works, and they jet off. He's basically like their spaceship now. The 2 females inside are bemoaning the fact that Ridge doesn't like him. They don't have no idea he's dead. They just think he's flying around outside the ship. And they're like, oh, at least we have each other. Let's make love. I love you, Mona. I love you too, Bose. So I just love Abraxas, how it's just got this, such a high concept, crazy, epic story. But then they have weird little moments like that, you know, emotional moments. And of course, this art is fucking amazing. Here we have Arise Awake by Mark Hempel. I really like this logo. It's nice. So this is like a first-person story where the main character is the camera's on them. You know, we're looking in as if we're the main character. So this guy comes to awareness, this bright light, and there's a scientist there. She says, "How are you feeling?" And she asks him, and this guy is thinking, you know, saying, "Where am I? I don't understand what's going on." She says, "Do you remember your name?" He says, "Do you remember your family, your home life?" He says, "No, I don't." And she's like, "Good." And he says, I don't understand what's going on." She says, "Much of your memory had to be erased for your own safety, of course. This was a necessary precaution for us also, to ensure that you will remain as objective as possible. Of course, you retain all technical information regarding your mission." But he has no idea what his mission is. "Emotional ties had to be severed. Your signed statement allowed us to do this. It's on file. Come on, we got a way to go. So the guy is thinking, and he's like, so I have a family? And she says, yes, you have a family. Now let's... And then the other scientist says, I don't think you should have told him that. And it gets the guy thinking, like, he's starting to regain his memories. They walk past a mirror so he can see himself. And he's just like, I don't know, half cyborg now. He's in this crazy suit. And he's like, really, what's going on? I really would like to know. And she says that we can't divulge that information. We got to jump ahead. And he starts manhandling the woman. He's like, tell me what's going on. But they free her. And the other scientist, one of the scientists says, leave the lady alone. Start walking towards that door. And he's still pleading with them. He's like, please tell me what's happening to me. And they say, come on over here near the airlock. And they grab him and shove him in the airlock. Oh, I'm sorry, they attempt to, and he shoves one of them away. And he's really struggling. So he says, who am I? What is this suit? She says, should I tell him? He says, yeah, he'll probably remember it a few days anyway now, because you fucked up. And it's an important mission. The suit is a prototype. It's a permanent encasing. It works on a complete and perfect cycle. Your waste becomes your food. It's a totally self-perpetuating environment. It'll sustain you on the surface of the moon. And we'll be monitoring you for, a decade or two until we have the data we need. Goodbye, David. Sorry. And they open the door and they push him out. And he says, why are you leaving me here? Chicago, my family, wife. He starts remembering even more of his past. And then as the ship pulls away to leave him forever, he says, Emily. He remembers his wife's name. So it's this really like low-key horror here where, they wiped his memories because they knew he'd go crazy just being in this suit forever, remembering all that he's lost. But now his memories are going to come back. They still leave him on the planet, though, which is pretty fucking evil. So he's going to just go fucking nuts. So here we got Barry Windsor-Smith. This is like the first comic Barry Windsor-Smith had made in years. All through the 70s, most of the late 70s and early 80s, he was just doing portfolios. Every now and then he might do the cover to a book, but no sequential narrative. So this is literally like the first time in forever, at least published. I've read interviews with Barry Windsor-Smith where he said all that time he was drawing comics for his own edification, So this is a very like Elizabethan comic. It's that whole romantic movement of art that Barry Windsor-Smith loves. The art is so beautiful, the colors, and it's like that, high romantic style, I guess from the late 19th century. And the captions, which are the narration of this main character, they're very Elizabethan. They're written in a very old-timey text. And we see this guy, he's kind of a sensitive soul. He doesn't quite get this whole world of chivalry. And he sees these young bucks fighting with wooden swords to court the favor of the ladies of the court, That's how you would pitch woo back then. Joust and get in fights and impress the ladies. So he wanders off into the gardens, the royal gardens. Just really nice. I hope you're watching this on a big screen. This is some beautiful, beautiful art. And I've never seen this done in a comic before. I thought that the production guy screwed up. He's, lost in his thoughts. And he says, where I did train as a young... And the caption is cut off, as if somebody just ripped it off. And I thought it was a mistake at first. But it's because he sees something that's a little disconcerting to him. Because he's this lonely, unlaid dude. I think he's a virgin. He's never known love. And he sees this lady of the court making out with like a lowly serf even. So that's very disconcerting to him because he's a knight in training. He can't even get a kiss from a girl. But this royal court lady is making out with the fucking serf. So just like in real life, if you're thinking something, you might see something shocking and it'll just cut your thought off in mid-sentence. So that's what he's trying to duplicate with the caption there. It's kind of interesting. I've never seen that done before. So then the thought continues, where I did train as a young knight. So he's walking through this beautiful garden, and he sees this wall, this beautiful wall with like roses and vines growing all over it. And it is said that the great warriors of yore venerated this cryptic monument. They would touch their broadswords to it before great battles, almost like a blessing to bless them. And then they'd hang their spattered shields upon it when they returned from battle. But he's just looking at this wall, and he sees one of the roses. It's not red like all the other roses. It sparkles like the rainbow. And when he reaches out to grab it, his hand goes right through it. But he's drawn to its charm. He's like, what the hell's going on here? Then all of a sudden, these critters come out of the wall. Snakes, even a fish seems to be floating out of the wall. And then he sees a beautiful hand connected to a beautiful arm, connected to a beautiful angelic creature with wings. And she takes the flower and offers it to him as a symbol of love. And then she starts speaking to him. And it's very it's like an Elizabethan ballad. It's very poetic. They're speaking of love and of dreams. And he's so in love with her already. He's just like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. And then she kind of merges with the flowers. And she comes out and she kisses him. And it sets his young blood aflame. And then she says, come with me forever. I will love you forever and be with you. And she leads him through the wall as if the wall is just mystic smoke. And we see on the other side of the wall, she has passed through, but we don't see him yet. He's still blocked by the top of the wall. But we do see that this other side of this wall, we've seen such beautiful, vibrant colors. And this wall is just the color of the graveyard, of a mausoleum, just gray. And we see some bones. And now the camera turns around and we see why the young knight in training will never come into view. He's like half submerged in the wall, turned into stone, with his arms still reaching out to touch the angel. But in his heart, I don't think he even realizes he's a statue. He just feels this amazing love. And then she turns into a statue. And then, obviously, lots of time passes. We see the vines and the thorns overrun him. We see his arm falling off, so obviously a lot of time has passed. His arm has been weathered by the elements and fallen off. And he's more overgrown until you can't even see him anymore. And he says, I make one pause, however. I fear that were I to close, then ope my eyes, my angel would be gone. So he's dead, obviously, or whatever this is, but he has this eternal love that'll never die somehow. Very Elizabethan ballad type stuff. This is always really interesting. It's A Path of Stars. It's copyright 1971. He made this in 71. It never was published until now. I don't know if he meant it to be in a fanzine or just he did it for his own gratification. But it's definitely, you can see, this is like 1971 Barry Smith when he was drawing Conan, you know? And we see this little kid, he's asleep, and this angel, like, being comes to him, opens his windows, and she beckons him to follow her. And we see a path of, like, very Art Nouveau, like, stars trail from her feet, making a path. And she coaxes him to walk out in the stars. And he can. They support his weight. And he's having a good time. He's like, this is great. But then the angel snaps her fingers. And all the stars go pop, pop, pop and disappear. And the little kid plummets to his death. Splat, it says. And she's just giggling. Such a great twist ending. Because it looks so like, you know, that romantic art that Barry Windsor-Smith likes. You know, it's so serious and a little pompous. And it has this cruel, mean-spirited twist ending. I love it. So this is supposedly the third new story from Barry Windsor-Smith. It's not really. But Barry Windsor-Smith did draw this beautiful 2-page spread sword and sorcery drawing of these like undead warriors attacking these two barbarians. Look very much like Conan and Red Sonja, but they're not. And then Archie Goodwin just took this drawing and made a story about it. It's a pretty decent sword and sorcery story. It's excuse me a second. It's basically in the future. The earth was dying. The sun was dying even. And something about this, it made the magic come back to the world. Like in the olden times. So magic actually works. And one of the sorcerers who arose during this time unleashed a zombie spell using sorcery. And it reanimated anyone who's ever died. So at this point of the story, almost the whole world is overrun. These last two barbarians, for all they know, they could be the last two living beings left. And they're fighting them to their last ounce of strength. And they realize, though, that they love each other and that even like surviving for just another day is worth it. Just so they can love each other for another day. And it gives them strength, and they figure out a way to escape this castle overrun by zombies. And they run away to live another day. You know, they're probably not going to live for long. The whole world is covered with zombies. And they're smart zombies who know how to wield swords. So they're not going to live that long. This is a rare treat. Arnold the Assyrian by Dave Sim. So this is 1983. Dave Sim is fully, obviously into Cerebus at this point. 6 years in. Dave Sim rarely drew anything other than Cerebus-related stuff for, God, the whole time he was doing Cerebus. So for Epic to get this is kind of a coup. And this is just great cartooning. I really like this. It's a total parody of Conan the Barbarian, but also it's an obvious homage to Winsor McCay's Little Nemo and Slumberland. We see this little Lord Fauntleroy type fancy lad, and he's reading about Arnold the Assyrian. And look how perfectly he duplicates the McCay style, the Winsor McCay. That's really good stuff. So, it's a total parody of Conan. There existed a great unwashed age. Hither came Arnold the Assyrian, black-haired, sullen-eyed, brain in neutral. I'm sorry, sword in hand, brain in neutral. A thief, a raper, a slayer, a ventriloquist. And he's holding up this guy's head. Hi, boys and girls. I just love Dave Sim's cartooning. Like, I don't know why. This is so funny looking. The way he's prancing off after robbing some horde. He just looks so goofy. And this is just, he's got 3 women pinned down under the raper part. Just craziness. And this kid's enthralled by this, this sword and sorcery character. And then the mother walks in the room And the last panel is her spanking her. And she's saying, what did I tell you about bringing this trash into the house? God, he even duplicates the lettering of Winsor McCay. The weird tiny lettering that Winsor McCay would do that was always like kind of a little uneven. He never really got the word balloon, Winsor McCay. Quite how to use them correctly. So here we have The Woman Who Loved the Moon. This is adapted from a novella by Elizabeth A. Lynn. She was a hot shit fantasy author. She actually won the World Fantasy Award one year. It could have been for this story. And Trina Robbins, the famous underground cartoonist, she adapts it. And she got Tom Orzechowski to letter it, one of the greatest letterers in comics. So it's very much like a folk tale, this story. We see this old kingdom called Isha, and it's ruled by Rocco Talvella. And he's a very robust general. He's always trying to expand the kingdom. So he's constantly away from the castle on these military campaigns. So because of that, he's trained his 3 daughters to be amazing warriors. So while he's gone, they can, help protect the land in his stead. His wife is a sorceress, and they're pretty happy in their kingdom. Whenever they do patrols, they have this young page who, if they're ever attacked, he can summon a coterie of guards with his flute. And one night, framed by the moon, they see this woman warrior. She kind of looks like a Valkyrie. And she seems to know who they are. And she says, my name is Seti. And one of the sisters challenges her to a duel. Because she's like, I thought we were the only women warriors in this area. We didn't even know there was another woman warrior. So I guess her pride is a little pricked. So they start to fight. I gotta say, I really do not like this airbrush coloring that Trina Robbins does. It's so muddy. Like, this is fine when she just does normal primary type colors. It fits her children's book art style. This is just looks like crap to me. It looks really, I don't know, like the side of a van in the 70s. So, so Seti wins the fight, and she mortally wounds the sister and then rides off. So, the sister dies in her sickbed. And the father comes home from his campaigns for the funeral, and he's there for a few months. And he kind of calls a truce. And it's kind of weird that when he's around, the 2 remaining sisters just go back to women's work, sewing and stuff. So strange. So finally, the father goes back to war, and now the 2 sisters are back on, military duty, and they see Seti again one night. And one of the sisters says, have it thee. I'm going to, get revenge for my sister. And Seti kills her too. So the remaining daughter tells her mother finally about this Seti person. I don't know why she never did before. And she's like, I wish you told me earlier, that's Seti. She's basically the moon. She's like a goddess. She's the moon goddess. And, gods are capricious. Gods are jerks in mythology. So she basically heard of their beauty, the daughter's beauty, and their prowess. And she was jealous. She came down to punish them. The elements are often cruel, says the mother. So the following spring, the remaining daughter rides out. She's going to find Seti. And she basically just says, let me join my sister. She doesn't even think she can win against Seti. But she's like, I want you to, kill me in combat, and then I can join my sisters. So she wakes up one morning, and Seti's cooking her breakfast. She says, here, eat. And she pleads with her. She says, will you fight me? And she says, sure. But to her surprise, she wins. And just as she's about to make the killing stroke, she looks at Seti and she throws her sword down and says, "You are too beautiful, Seti." And Seti says, "Come with me." And so they go to her cave beneath the ocean and they make love. So she falls in love with Seti, even though she killed her 2 sisters. It seems like a lot of time passes. She basically forgot her whole life. She's so besmitten with Seti that she can barely even remember life before her. Every night they race with the wolves and they watch the dolphins playing in the sea. It's just this beautiful romance. But one night, the daughter has a dream of an old woman calling out her name, and her memories awoke. She tells Seti, she says, I have to return to my home. And Seti's like, "That's cool. I'll even give you this, my horse, my divine nightmare, mare of the night. And he'll take you there. I love you so much, I'm going to even help you leave." So she goes back home. A lot of time has passed. Time passes differently there. Her mother is an old woman. And as soon as she reunites with her, she dies of old age. The page, that little boy from her younger days, he's an old man now. He dies too. So she's very sad. And she misses Seti. And she gave her this mirror that's like, anytime you miss me, just, summon me and I'll come and be with you again. So they have a beautiful night. And she says, "Will you come back?" She says, "When you summon me." So basically every month they reunite and have they make love and have a good time. But then after a few years of this, Seti stops coming when she summons her with the mirror. She breaks the mirror in frustration. Seti's forsaken her. And so soon after that, she starts aging as she should have. And just very rapidly aging. And she soon dies. Some years later, there was a war in Isho. Their soldiers were outnumbered and they were about to be defeated. And all of a sudden, a warrior arrived in bright armor. And she routs the enemy soldiers. They flee in terror. And then she disappears again. So this was the first appearance of Kai's shade. That was the last daughter who was in love with the moon. And every now and then, Kai appears. Sometimes just unarmored and in red silk, gliding through the halls of the Isho estates. And then we see, because this is very much like a folktale, I guess generations after that, the young daughters of this kingdom are told this story by their parents. Just like any good folktale, it passes down. This is pretty sad. We have a tribute to Gene Day, who had recently died. He only lived to be 31 years old. And this guy was so fucking talented. He did a lot of fanzine work in the 70s, did a lot of stuff for Star Reach, and then got hired by Marvel to do Master of Kung Fu. And his work is amazing in that. I have all those issues. They're so good. Gene Day, basically the story goes, is that he worked himself to death. This guy worked so hard. Like his Master of Kung Fu's, you can't believe the amount of work he puts in every panel. It's insane, actually. And he didn't just draw that comic. He inked Star Wars at the time. He was still contributing to magazines and fanzines. And it's so sad. Like, this is him when he was just a fanzine artist. Look at this. This is better than probably the majority of mainstream artists of the day. This stuff is so good. He was just a master craftsman. He's doing a Conan thing. See, this is the amount of detail. He draws a spaceship. He draws every kind of widget and doodad on the wing. It's nuts. This guy was so good. Oh, that's beautiful. So here we have chapter 2 of Last of the Dragons, The Vision. We're back at that temple And there's kind of like a council going on. And one of the guys gets up and he says, we got to change our ways, guys. You know, the foreigners they're lapping at our boundaries. Pretty soon they're going to overrun us and take our dragons, these noble beasts, and take our lives. We've got to train ourselves in the martial arts and teach the dragons to fight also. And what these elders don't know is these guys have already been doing that secretly. That's what in the last issue that the priest in that story, that's what he saw. He just couldn't see the face of the guy, so he didn't know who it was, who the monks were. It was too far away to see which monks were doing this. Of course, the elders say, we're an order dedicated to peace, and the dragons are the most serene creatures that exist on Earth. This is like an abomination, what you're suggesting. And these guys, the little conspirators, they just say, you know, join us or join your ancestors. If you don't join us, we're just going to kill you if you don't go along with this plan. And Hokan is the priest that I was talking about. He realizes, like, you were the monks. You were the priests who were training the weapons. I saw you. And he admits he's been preparing for months. And then he says, attack. And so all the priests run out. And the dragons are waiting in the courtyard, and they can't believe it because the dragons are such gentle creatures, but they've really trained them to be murderous warriors, and the dragons fucking start mowing down on the priests, and they're just dying in horror. They're like, I can't believe this. This would be like if your like dog just started attacking you, you know, your beloved pet. So Hokan escapes just by dumb luck. He kind of trips and falls under this dragon's tail, and he runs away. You know, I'm sorry, I forgot to give the credits again. Written and penciled by Carl Potts, inked by Terry Austin, script by Denny O'Neil, because Carl Potts just does the plot, and Marie Severin colors. Jim Novak lettering, I guess I should say. I really don't care, though. It's workmanlike lettering. It's not bad. So Hokan escapes in the dark. The evil priests try to get him, but they can't find him. So Hokan finds this a thing he buried a long time ago in case of emergencies. It's the eyelid scale of a white dragon, possessed of mystic power. And his mentor, Casio, before he died, he saw trouble in his future. That's why he gave it to him. And he told him to, if you're in trouble, burn the scale, meditate on your problems, and breathe in the vapors, and you'll figure out an answer. So that's what happens. And yeah, look at this Terry Austin inking here. He's earning his paycheck. Just this, instead of just making this black, this is all, you probably can't even tell on your screen, just all cross-hatching. Insane how much work he put into this. As far as I know, this is at least the first time. I know, you know, Terry Austin usually worked in mainstream comics. You know, his stuff was reproduced on crappy paper with crappy presses. So this is probably the first time Terry Austin was like, wow, my shit's going to be printed on nice paper with nice printing. I'm going to go to town because all the work I put into it, you'll get to see on the page. So he kind of sees a vision while he's in this meditative state. And now we cut away to Nagasaki, the only port in Japan that welcomes foreign ships. We see a mother and her son, and they're pretty happy until this guy comes in. It's her husband. He's a Westerner. He's a sailor who married her, and they had a son. He's just a drunken jerk. He's berating his wife, and he's all like, I own you. I bought you from your low-life parents. And who's this monkey over here? What's his name again? He doesn't even know his own son's name. He just shows up every now and then to fuck his wife and berate them. So his name's Takashi. And he says, Takashi, the half-breed monkey. He's a jerk. But it's true. I mean, his life is not good because He is half-breed, so both worlds don't accept him. When he's 14, he just takes off and leaves a note for his mom. And he figures he's just going to live in the forest. He's sick of humanity. You know, everyone scorns him and treats him like shit. So he's just going to go live in the forest. But humanity is not so easily escaped. For a day later, he sees a bunch of people. Turns out it's these thieves who have cornered this couple. And they're ninjas. And he tries to ward them off. It's like, hey guys, do you realize we're ninjas? And like, we don't care. We're going to take your stuff. So he kills almost all of them, but it's just too many guys to fight at once. So they cut him down. The remaining thief cuts him down. Then he grabs the woman and he's gonna rape her. So Takashi comes up from behind and cuts him in two. So she takes Takashi back to her home, the Iga Ninja Clan. And the father is so grateful, he accepts them into their clan. And over the coming months and years, he learns all of the ninja skills. And he learns poisons and medicines and combat. And he suffers under these trials of pain, you know, to teach him endurance. He says, do you have any questions? He says, why did I kill that bandit? So he can still joke about it. But as he grows older, and Hanako, the woman he saved, the young woman he saved grows older, he realizes he's falling in love with her. And we cut back to Hokan, and Hokan realizes, he says, he is the one. He will end the corruption. So Hokan has found a paladin to help him undo the injustice that happened at the monastery. Oh, this is so good. I fucking love Rick Geary, our new dad. Rick Geary, I wish appeared more in a epic. I mean, he was in heavy metal a lot in National Lampoon, but he started in the mini comics revolution in the 70s. He would just put out tons of minis, every single one. He probably made 100 stories. He just cranked out these 1-page, 2-page, 3-page stories, always so funny, so clever, just this dry sense of humor, always these amazing, quirky ideas. Nobody quite makes a story like Rick Geary. He's got, not only is his art, you know, this inimitable style, but his writing even, is like, the stories he told were just so quirky and of him, you know, nobody could duplicate it. So it's narrated by this little kid, and he says, here I am in happier times with Dad and Mom and my sister Clarette. Dad was an electronics genius, and he was away from home a lot on business. So he built this robot to keep them company. And the family calls him Bud. They call the robot Bud. You know, Bud would clean house and bring drinks to the kids. And he even had an alarm system and an infrared scan to protect the family. And the father was away more and more. So he even built like this rubber mask of his face to put on the robot. And in short order, Bud became one of the family. And it's weird. The kid says, none of us really noticed that Dad stopped coming back home. They don't really even seem to care. They're just like, yeah, Bud's fine. He's a good dad. So Bud gets a job at the factory. He's never tired. So he always has time to play with his kids. When the dog gets run over, he builds a robot dog for everyone. Here they are at the mall and at the movies. Just a typical American family. Here's some of Bud's friends from the assembly line, these other robots. One day, one of the robots throttles a human supervisor. So this company fires all their electronic persons who work there. So the father never returns home. I guess he's He was humiliated. He was too humiliated to return. One day, the kid receives a card from Bud, and now he's selling his spare parts to make a living, one of which he sent me for a keepsake. I later learned that the bulk of him had been used as part of our space program. Oh, Rick Geary stories are always like that. They always have that last little panel, which adds a weird little wry bit of humor. Excuse me. So this is nice. We get a Jack tale by Charles Vess. This one's called Two Sisters. About 10 issues ago, I believe, we saw the first Jack tale by Charles Vess. He was a much younger artist, just starting out at the time. So we can really see the improvement here. Charles Vess is becoming the artist we know as Charles Vess. So once again, Jack is being a little scoundrel, ne'er-do-well, can't pay this innkeeper. The innkeeper's about to beat the shit out of him. But then he's whisked away by this witch woman. And her name is Elise. And she makes love to him. And then she says, I think you'll be the one. And you're going to be the one to help a lady in distress. And she says, my sister has been captured by this powerful merchant named El Fayed. His priests have warded her against my spells, so I can do nothing to free her. But with your talents, maybe you could help. And he says, yeah, if you throw in a bag of gold. And she says, sure. So they have sex again. Then when she's asleep, he sneaks out. Because he has second thoughts. He realizes, like, this mission seems way too dangerous. It's not worth a bag of gold. I'm not going to do it. So he leaves with his little robot buddies. And then the witch turns into a dragon and catches up to him and says, where were you going? And so the witchy dragon lady grabs his two robot buddies and throws them in a little sack and says, you know, if you want to see these guys again, you're going to do this mission for me. So she flies him to the place. This is the castle of the merchant. I really like that. That's some great fantasy art. And she instructs him to give this talisman to her sister. Its magical properties will negate the priest's spells. And here's a little reference to the first Jack Tale story. This place is gloomier than the Black God's temple. That's who he confronted in that first one. Just see a lot of nice silent panels of him being this little sneak thief, getting into the castle. And he makes it up to the El Fayed's bedroom where he's got the witch sister chained up. And he's about to have his way with her. He's so repulsive, this guy. He's just lumping, creepy dude. So Jack sneaks up behind him and bonks him on the head with this clay pot. Gives her the amulet. So now she can turn into a dragon. She says, go hang out with my sister. I'm going to take care of this. I got some business to finish here. And she gets revenge on the merchant. We don't see it. The camera pulls back, but we hear him go, ah! So it's probably pretty gnarly. She probably rends him to pieces. So now the sisters are reunited. And the first sister gives him his bag of gold and returns his buddies. And they fly off and they leave him on this outcrop here. So he's like, oh man, we have our gold, but how do we get down from here to spend it? So they're kind of trapped up there. So that's why Jack Tales always had this like whimsical kind of funny side to them. They're never that serious. So that's it for this issue. Epic Illustrated number 16, February 1983. I hope you liked it. I really like this issue. I mean, the Rick Geary story, the Barry Windsor-Smith stuff. There's some really good shit in here. And, of course, more of Abraxas, which is really... I can't wait to the last chapter. I forgot what happens. I read it 30 years ago, you know. I haven't read it in that long. But it's probably my favorite thing in all of these epics so far has been this Abraxas. Really love it. But there you go. Hope you liked it. And I hope you come back next time here at the Petixonian Institute of Comic Book Studies.